And welcome into the Sporting News Studios. I'm Tom Vandervoort, sitting alongside writer Matt Crossman to talk about the dirtiest player in the NFL, Ndamukong Suh, Detroit Lions. Is he the dirtiest player? I mean, all the other guys say so, right?
Yeah, we did. The Sporting News took a poll a few weeks ago, and he won pretty handily. So that's one way to measure it, and he has been fined $42,500 in just a season and a half. Whether that's the definition of dirty, I guess people can make up their own minds, but he's certainly considered that.
Well, after I read your article, it didn't really sound like a description of a dirty player. It sounded like a description of a very hard-nosed, hard-working, and intelligent player. What are some of the things you found out about Suh when you started researching this?
Yeah, that's certainly what he would tell you, and what his fans would tell you, and what the Lions would tell you is that he's more that he's aggressive, not dirty. Certainly, the penalties he has been given, I think, are more like post-whistle penalties. I mean, they're clearly penalties. He's not getting baloney calls or anything like that. But I wouldn't say he's a cheap shot artist. He's not trying to hurt people or anything like that.
Now, what about his time at Nebraska? Because it was interesting what you told us. He played under Bill Callahan there, and then Callahan left, and we got Bo Pelini. What was that change like for Suh? Because he thought about transferring.
Yeah,
right?
It was. That was probably the key moment, at least in his young career, that his first 2 years in Nebraska, he was good but not great, and he played hard but not like he does now. And the Pelinis, you only have to watch them on the sideline for 5 minutes. Those guys are very intense, very, I would say, almost manic, very high-strung. And he assumed their personality on the field, I think, is the best way to put it. And going into Detroit, Jim Schwartz, as we saw when he almost fought Jim Harbaugh after the game a couple weeks ago, he's very intense too. So, it's not fair to say that he lacked motivation. It was taking that extra step to go from a good player most of the time to great all of the time.
Now, how's he looking in the pros? Obviously, Detroit, not a very good team when he got there.
Yep.
A better team this year. Great start, some hiccups now.
Yep.
Where's this team heading? You talk about an identity. How much of the defense is resting on this guy's shoulders?
Oh, very much so. The whole key to that Lions defense is the defensive line, and he's the best player on it. I don't think there's really any debate about that. But he's got good players around him because he's got, Nick Fairley is also a tackle, and Kyle Vandenbosch as one end, and Cliff Averill as the other. I mean, that's as good of a defensive line as there is in the NFL. Now, the Lions have a terrible habit of playing just abominably bad in the first half, and then coming back yesterday or Sunday, they played the Panthers and were down 17 points to the Panthers. No offense to the Panthers, but the Lions are not should not be trailing them by 17. They came back and won, but they can't. They play the Packers Thursday. They can't fall behind 17 points to the Packers and expect to win.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch Aaron Rodgers against that defense.
Very
Is this a defensive line that can make Aaron's life a little harder? I mean, it doesn't seem like anybody can these days.
Well, that's if there is a defensive line that can make Aaron Rodgers' life difficult, it's this one. That's not to say they will, because he's so quick and he's so smart and he gets the ball out so quickly that that negates the advantage the defensive line has. However, you look back to the other most famous undefeated team, the Patriots. They went to the Super Bowl. Most people say they lost the Super Bowl because they got overwhelmed at the point of attack. And if the Lions are going to beat the Packers, that's what they're going to have to do.
Now, talk to me a little bit about. It was interesting the way you set your article up. He's a destroyer, but he's also a builder. One of the interesting things was when he went to the NFL and said, "I just want to understand exactly what's going on with these fines." That seemed like an atypical move from a player.
Yeah, I can't think of another. In NASCAR, you get called to the principal's office all the time. In the NFL, if they want to talk to you, they talk to you. But I can't remember really.
Can I go to the principal's office, please?
Exactly. And saying, he basically went to them and said, it sounds like at least, nobody's come out and said exactly what the content was, but that, what am I doing wrong that you keep penalizing me for it? Which to me suggests, he says he doesn't care about being called a dirty player. If that was literally true, he's not going to the NFL and asking, why am I getting in so much trouble? What it says to me is he doesn't want to change who he is, but he does want to stop getting the penalties because that hurts his team.
He wants to understand how things work. I think that was something that came out of your story as far as back in childhood. He would take things apart to see how they work. When he was at Nebraska, he wanted to know how his line play fit in with the rest of the scheme of the defense. That seems to me to be the kind of a thing that a young player will make him a lot better if he really wants that information.
Yeah, he's a really interesting character for a guy who's 6'4" and 300 and runs so fast and is so aggressive. He's really cerebral too. That he doesn't he thinks things through. And you mentioned the wanting to know what the other units in the defense are doing. the Pellinis were so struck by that they changed the way they coach based on his questions. That's another thing. I've never heard of another player influencing a coach, and really in only 2 years like that.
Pretty dominant player, pretty interesting player. You'll definitely want to read the article. Matt Crossman on sportingnews.com. I'm Tom Vandervoort. We'll see you next time.